Today we're here at the Stafford County SPCA. This property around me has 150 years of history going back to the Civil War. We're going to meet with Lori Hoyt, who is the director of the SPCA. She's going to help us understand a little bit about that history and some of the paranormal events that are surrounding it. You have an amazing story behind the Stafford SPCA. This is something that really tells about 150 years of history. So tell me a little bit about that. When did you acquire the building?
Well, we bought the building in 2008 with the purpose of running it as a no-kill animal rescue for Stafford County. In 2009, we actually had to form the Stafford SPCA ourselves. In 2010, we started putting animals in here, and I actually began working here in 2011.
This place has been a sanatorium. It's been a nursing home. It's been a home for wayward boys. Take me back to the beginning. What was this place first after it was part of a Union encampment?
The first use that we know of is that it was about a 300 to 400 acre working farm. Within that farm also operated the Beacon Light Sanatorium, which was officially licensed as a nursing home. And they ultimately got shut down because they were bringing in wards of the state, orphans. From what I understand, they were paid $50 per orphan that they had, but it was illegal to keep them here, and they were actually working them on the farm. So in an effort to raise funds to build or modify this building, a freelance Star reporter came out to do a story, and in some of the shots that he got, he noticed that there were children on the grounds. That actually led to an investigation, and ultimately that's the reason why they were shut down. So in 1958, when Beacon Light Sanatorium was shut down, it was actually vacant for a couple years. And in 1960, the Seventh-day Adventist Church took it over, and it was vacant again for another 2 years. And in 1962 was when it opened as the Brookwood Nursing Home.
Was that the last time it was occupied was in 1962, or how long was that open?
The building was occupied as a nursing home from 1962 until 2006, when Brookwood Nursing Home was finally shut down and closed. They did not clear out the building. They simply moved the patients out. The bed certificates were sold to another company. So the beds were here, the linens were here, the food was here, the medication was here, everything was here except for the staff and to the patients.
So when you opened it up,
it was just like that in 2008.
So in essence, this place remained a time capsule.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me a little bit about the what you found out. I understand that once things started kind of getting active around here, that you reached out to a local paranormal investigation group.
We did, and we invited them to come out and do an investigation, and we had evidence of a lot of interactive, intelligent EVPs, very little historical type EVPs. And because we got a lot of EVPs that said help or help me, we really didn't like the idea that anything was trapped within the building. So one of our fellow investigators, Dave, suggested that we have a shaman come out and do a cleansing.
The shaman's history takes us back to the Stone Age. In most cultures, you'll find a form of the shaman, or medicine man as they have also been referred to. They are often viewed as the ferryman and psychologists for the dead, helping them cross over and coping with the change. Many are called upon to ward off spirits that aren't playing nice with the living, but also in some cases to actually protect the dead from the living as well.
How did that go?
It was interesting. There were more intelligent EVPs that were caught for her investigation.
Like animals, something wrong. Like animals, something wrong.
And then I actually had my first real, true, what I would consider my personal experience in our pantry when I felt something move through me.
I bet that was a pretty wild experience.
Wasn't expecting that.
You seldom do. So tell me about that night. Walk me through it. What happened?
Well, we'd moved to the pantry area. Dave had his camera on me, and the shaman was doing her cleansing ritual. And as she did that, I felt something move into my chest. And all I could explain was that it just felt like intense sadness, just the saddest sad I've ever felt. And then it felt like it was related to children, and my own personal experience with my kids and sadness related to that was the only thing that I could feel or hear. And just in a flash, as soon as it had come in, it left and it kind of went up that way, and I noticed that the shaman, her eyes tended to follow it as it left. When Dave was going over the audio, he actually heard the name Robin at that particular time, which at that point it was not a name that meant anything to me.
Now, you said at that time, were you able to find any relevance to that name later on?
Not yet. I'm still looking.
So it's created a lot of mystery in your life that...
Well, we did have a later session with Dave and the Elrods, and there was a lot of interactivity between me and the Elrods. And one of the questions that we had asked was, "Are you Robin?" And the answer that we got was yes.
Okay. You've also had some activity down in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about some of those things.
The investigative team that was down there with us, they had a little K2 meter. And there's a particular spot in the basement that the shaman had identified as a portal. And so when the team was standing in that area, they would ask whatever spirits were there to, come closer to the K2.
Can you make 3 lights go off? Just 3. I guess it would be 3. There you go. Thank you.
And light the lights up on the K2. And there's an interactive session where the closer they came, they could light up 5 lights. They could back down, and they seemed to, for a period of about 2 to 3 minutes, give us as many lights as we asked for.
Can you make it go out now, please? You make the lights go out?
You got a mirror?
The way you do that is just step away from it.
Mirror didn't come back, did he?
Whoa.
By coming closer and moving further away.
So you picked up an intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been other little things that have happened on and off, or is everything specifically only happens when you go looking for it?
Well, we tend to stay pretty busy in here, so if we don't slow down and concentrate on it, it's really easy to miss the subtle cues that they seem to be giving us. But if we've got a quiet shelter and we can actually spend the time in here and interact, there's plenty of interactivity to notice.
Like,
you can hear audible voices. I've been walking by just concrete walls and heard a man's cough. We've had the scent of cigar smoke that more than one person notices at that time. And I actually heard an old woman yell throughout the building at one point, "Who's talking?" And I checked with everybody within the building to make sure that it didn't come from them, and I and only one other person heard that.
how about your techs, your volunteers? How has this affected them?
That's actually what started the investigation. Is the techs were noticing activity. They didn't know where it was coming from. They couldn't explain it. And a couple of them were scared to the point of not wanting to be in the building at night during their shift. And so that's what prompted me to call in the first investigative team. And I wanted to be able to reassure our staff that there was nothing to be afraid of, that there was no reason to quit, and that everything was okay.
Now, has this carried over to your family life? I mean, has this, sometimes entities will follow you home. Has this happened to you?
Yeah, our daughter tells that at the time she was about 13, 14 years old. She didn't know how to braid her own hair, but one morning she woke up and her hair was braided. And then occasionally we'll have, doors open and close at the house, but, nothing really, nothing like out here.
And you live pretty close to this building,
About 4 minutes away.
about 4 minutes away. So you're still part of the Civil War attachment.
Very much. We're actually closer to Ukiah Landing at the house.
Ukiah Landing has a significant role in American culture, perhaps having a footprint as early as 14,000 BC. It was in the 1600s when Captain John Smith encountered the Potawatomi Native American tribe that really began it all. Although it became the place of modern legend during the war between the states, when after Virginia's secession in 1861, the landing became a strategic focal point that would see the first shots of the United States Navy during our Second Great Homeland War, as well as the first use of Confederate naval mines. Literally thousands of Union and Confederate troops, as well as enslaved people, made their mark on those marshes and fields on their way to and fro on Virginia soil. At an estimated rate of more than 3,000 deaths a day, the question that begs to be answered is, how many of those spirits are still on and beyond those shores? Spirit activity is tremendous.
I would imagine there'd be many there who lost their lives due to illness, but also right now they're very discouraged. They're very disheartened. The war for the Union is not going well.
Now, what about the possibility of bodies still being buried?
Very likely.
So we're here at the Stafford County Civil War Park, which is located just on the back side of the SPCA. I'm here with our historian, Michelle Hamilton, who's going to give us a bit of information about how those two places connect.
Well, the two places connect because after the Battle of Fredericksburg in 1862, the Union has received a devastating defeat. They have crossed back over the Rappahannock River into Stafford County to kind of lick their wounds and to regroup. It's winter time, so they're going to go into winter camp, and during this winter time, they're going to be dealing with the losses of their army, but also the morale. Morale is seriously low after the devastating defeat, and so they will winter here through 1862 to 1863 as they prepare not only to receive another Union commander, but also to figure out what their next campaign will be in the following springtime. So they will stay here. They will go pretty much any vacant place in Stafford County, this property, but also the property that is now the SPCA. The SPCA property is up on the hill, an ideal place for Union encampment. They are up on the hill, they can place gunworks, they're relatively safe. So they will stay there, but also during this, anytime we have multiple soldiers in encampment, we're going to have disease being spread through. Thousands of soldiers will unfortunately lose their lives during this winter time.
So you would definitely say that the possible spirit activity is tremendous.
I would imagine there'd be many there who lost their lives due to illness, but also right now they're very discouraged. They're very disheartened. The war for the Union is not going well.
Now, what about the possibility of bodies still being buried?
Very likely. I mean, during the war, they would bury them at a place, but then the Union troops are moving on. They're going into another camp. It would many times wait till after the war to find them again, and many times by then, the simple markers for them have deteriorated. So I imagine that though their best efforts to recover those lost soldiers, many of them, unfortunately, are still buried.